YouTube censored the original version of this video, which did give you some details on the various things that I had going on in the flock. Went ahead and removed those portions and super fuzzed the other ones to make it a little more friendly here. But if you want to see the uncensored version, you can go to shepherdessvideos.com and it will be there. So today's video is just going to talk a little bit about how I've had a kind of a pile up. I lost 5 sheep. Not all at once. It was over the course of a few months to 5 sort of distinct issues, and I think it'll help you out to kind of know about those issues. And another really disappointing thing that happened was I lost my lease. If you guys want to watch this video up here, you will find kind of the explanation of how I worked a little bit last year to get it. And I went back around for a renewal in 2023, and the answer was no. It was extremely disappointing to lose what I thought was going to be an ongoing opportunity, but it's really caused me to sort of sit back and think. A lot of times we receive gifts, answers to prayer, and maybe they don't end up being situations that pan out to the extent that we desired, but it doesn't negate basically the greatness of their purpose. Doesn't mean that they were any less a gift. It's been a while since we've done a vlog update though. Anything new going on with the chicks?
No, status quo.
Okay.
Everything's going good. Very wet, but that's it.
Super wet, which is nothing to complain about after last year. We had a very difficult year last year in that it was like the worst drought in 100 years. At least it rivaled it. We ran out of grass by November. I can usually graze through January, so by about the end of November I was feeding hay. While I was shopping for what I knew I would need as far as feed over winter, given the deficit, I said to myself, okay, what do I need and what's it gonna cost? We got to a place last year where hay for sheep was at about $13 for a 50-pound bale. That's sheep quality hay. Sheep are a little bit more picky with respect to what kind of hay they eat. So I did some cost comparison, and rolled barley was about the same, if not a little bit cheaper. So given the fact that I really could not get my hands on all of the hay that I needed, there was a huge shortage, and the fact that cost was about the same, and nutritionally was about the same, I ended up splitting my feed needs between a little bit of grain, maybe about 20%, and then 80% of the hay. It's working out really well. I think I'm gonna make it through the winter. I am out of sheep quality hay right now, but if I give them a little bit of the grain and then a little bit of the cow quality hay, I think they're gonna make it just fine. I'm gonna move on to the 5 that I had. The first one was to a predator attack on the flock. This was the first attack we've had in 3 years. A lot of people are gonna ask me about a livestock guardian dog. There are a few dynamics with respect to my farm on whole that have made the livestock guardian dog route not necessarily a good one for me. We have a very tight fence, and I found the area where the predator actually dug under the fence. Now I actually came up on the scene, and there was a dog that I recognized was a neighbor's pet dog. Whether the dog actually was responsible for killing the animal or just snuck in and took advantage of the aftermath, I really don't know. But that happened overnight, and unfortunately she was with lamb very heavily. I only found the remains of 1, so that was a loss of 2. Since then, when the flock is grazing that particular pasture, which is the one that's most easily accessible to predators should we have them, I have been putting them back into a corral at night. Number 2 was really gross, but I went out and the ewe had delivered a really healthy lamb, and then I looked at what appeared to be the afterbirth, and I realized it wasn't just the afterbirth. So after some research on this, I found it was Toxoplasmosis. And guys, I would highly recommend that you buy the book Story's Guide to Raising Sheep for when you come up against totally weird stuff like this. You're likely going to find it in that book. And the book is available at shopshepherdess.com if you'd like to support my farm by purchasing it there. So basically, long story short, Toxoplasma is as a result of a parasite that infects a cat through a infected rat. That cat goes to the bathroom either on the pasture that the sheep are grazing or the feed that the sheep eat, and that parasite infects the ewe. So far, I have not had any other ewes give birth to anything that looks like this, and once a ewe has had it once, there's a certain level of immunity that comes after they have it once. It's also transmissible to humans, guys. This is one of the reasons why they do not recommend that women who are pregnant or may become pregnant get involved in lambing at any point in time, because you just never know when it's going to be present in a flock. It's a relatively common issue. Loss number 4 and 5 were relatively low-key. It was just a sheep that had not been doing well. She just never had thrived since she was born, and we had a huge freeze come through, and I just lost her. Second one was a really precious lamb. He became a bottle lamb, and it was, again, very cold, very wet, and he contracted pneumonia. One of the questions I get a lot is, what do you do with all the ones? Can you eat them? And we never do. We don't. Another question is, how do you get rid of them all? Where do you put the dead sheep? We just have a distant area, and we will put them there and let nature do the burial in most cases. For Chester, I didn't want to do that. I did not want to put him in a distant corner, and so I was like, we had some friends, and we were spending the afternoon together, and I was just like, can we just dig a hole for this one? I feel like he needs proper burial. And so we did. I'm gonna probably get some comments like, he's not a pet. And I totally know he's not a pet, but it felt really good to bury that one instead of just leaving him in a corner somewhere. It was kind of like healing in my soul, you know, from all the 5 that had just died. It was good. When seasons like this hit, and it's really discouraging, I have to zoom out. Let's take a look, not at the discouraging thing that's right in front of me, but let's take a look at the big picture. Think back to how difficult the first 3 years of raising this flock was. We're in year number 5 of raising sheep, and I think about where we're at today and just the health of the flock today versus what it was, and the relative ease that we have today in raising these animals versus what it was. If you guys are curious about that, I have a full 1-hour video. It's absolutely free for you. It gives sort of a background on where we came from as flock owners. It also gives you the basics of raising sheep, basics of grazing sheep, and the basics of marketing. So if you guys want a little bit more in depth, please utilize that video down below. And I appreciate you guys' support so incredibly much. You guys are one of the greatest encouragements to me as I move forward, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.